Fighting for transparency, that is the topic of tonight's Byline. By now you've heard the story, the outrageous story of the Indian chief in British Columbia making nearly $1 million a year for leading a band of just 80 people. Ron Gijsbrecht, chief of the Coquitlam First Nation, earned $914,219 last year, according to disclosure documents. That money was tax-free, meaning those of us paying tax would need to make more than $1.5 million a year to have the same spending power as Chief Gijsbrecht. Now, other councillors for the band, they made a lot less. Fred Holbert, councillor and capital infrastructure officer for the band, he earned $32,639 for 11 months' work. His replacement earned $4,723 for a single month. And Councillor Ed Hall, who also acts as fisheries officer for the band, well, he earned $52,350. These other salaries seem absolutely reasonable compared to Chief Gijsbrecht, so why the huge disparity? Well, says the band, his salary is really not that large. He just had a bonus of 10% for any business he brings to the band. And last year, the band sold a piece of land for more than $8 million, meaning Chief Gijsbrecht, he got a big payday. A big payday on top of his more than $100,000 plus salary for leading a band of 80 people. It's revolting, really. This isn't a business that Ron Gijsbrecht built with his own sweat, effort, and capital. This is him ripping off the people he is supposed to lead. He was likely the highest paid politician in Canada last year, but don't worry. The band says they've changed the terms of his contract and this sort of thing won't happen again. I have to say that without disclosure being forced on the Chiefs by the federal government, we wouldn't know about this. Neither would many band members, and Chief Gijsbrecht and others like him, well, they would just continue to rake in the cash. Now, media across the board have been outraged by this, including, ironically, our state broadcaster, CBC.
Chief Ron Gijsbrecht manages a First Nation of less than 100 people, and last year he drew nearly a seven-figure income. Details laid bare by Ottawa's new First Nations Financial Transparency Act. A surprisingly high take-home in a country where many chiefs don't make that kind of money, let alone premiers and prime ministers. Chris Brown has that story for us from Vancouver tonight. Chris?
Diana, the Coquitlam First Nation is one of the smallest reserves in Canada, but now we know its chief is unquestionably one of the richest. Just off a bend in the Fraser River in suburban Vancouver, you'll find the Coquitlam First Nation, population 81, and of those, just 35 people actually live on the reserve. Ron Gijsbrecht is the chief, seen here in an interview he did with the CBC 2 years ago. His eye-popping pay packet last year, $914,000 tax-free, plus another almost $17,000 in expenses. It's unbelievable, say critics.
Unbelievable, say critics. I have to laugh at this. CBC being outraged at the salary disclosure of any group that gets government money? Really? Why is that laughable? Because, of course, while CBC is happy to do a story on this, they don't want to let us know that salaries that we have to pay, they don't want to tell us what they are. Whether we're talking about on-air talent like Peter Mansbridge or Don Cherry, or executives like CBC President Hubert Lacroix. We do know that documents released a few years ago by CBC show that they pay their people, or at least did pay them, an average of 37 or 39% more than what the average Canadian earns in a year. If CBC thinks it's good that Canadians know about the salaries of reserve chiefs, then it should stand to reason that we, the taxpayers, the ones that foot the bill for their lavish lifestyle, should get to know about their salaries as well, or at least the salaries of their executives. Instead, we get CBC head honcho Hubert Lacroix refusing to divulge information on his own salary and claiming that lead news anchor Peter Mansbridge is paid a maximum of $80,000. That's unbelievable. But we do know that Lacroix earns between $358,400 and $421,600 per year. That's the range. He's also eligible for a bonus of up to 20%. We found out when he was caught double dipping on his expenses that on top of all this, he gets $1,500 a month in tax-free living expenses. None of this information was easy to pry from the state broadcaster, despite the fact that we pay for their salaries. Look, the simple fact is, if we pay for it, we should know about it. I think it's great that the whole country knows that Chief Ron Gijsbrecht was hosing the people of his reserve with an outrageous contract. I think it will change how his contract and others like him are handled in the future. But I also think that we should know how much Lacroix and his top executives make. I think we should know what the top mandarins in Ottawa, the ones with the real power running departments, make as well. Sunshine is a great disinfectant, they say. I think we need more of it in Ottawa, and not just for Indian chiefs. And that's the byline. Joining me now out of Vancouver to talk more about the top story, the shocking salary of First Nation Chief Ron Giesbrecht, his Sun News contributor Ada Slavinsky. Ada, you actually went out to the reserve today and were able to see firsthand what conditions are like, also talk to people and hear back what some of the propaganda coming from Chief Giesbrecht has been.
Right, exactly, Brian. So what was so shocking to me was the disparity on the reserve. It's a gorgeous piece of land, beautiful view of some of the bridges, the mountains. The drive out there, I was absolutely stunned. Gorgeous signage. The front of the reserve looks very nice. So driving in there, I thought, okay, well, maybe this is a well-to-do reserve and they're taking care of their people and, you know, move on, not much to see here. But when I actually walked around past the main entrance sign, I thought I ended up in the garbage dump, to be honest. There was some trailers, some mobile homes, really shocking conditions as well.
A lot of debris in certain places.
Exactly, exactly. You know, nothing wrong with living in a trailer, but when the place just looks totally dilapidated, things are falling apart. I thought, you know, nobody could live here, but people were peeking out, running out, kind of trying to chase me off. So it turns out people do live here, and in very shocking conditions, especially when you put that into contrast with the salary and with kind of the face of this place. I mean, the chief doesn't even live on the reserve.
He doesn't live on the reserve. Let me ask you, does it look like the people that do live on the reserve can afford salaries like that? I mean, okay, so they claim $800,000 of the $914,000 was bonus for the land sale. That's beyond what any real estate agent would charge you for selling a piece of land, far beyond. But his $100,000 plus salary, does this place look like they can afford that?
No, absolutely not. And I don't think that they know. I mean, nobody would actually speak to me. They were just trying to chase me off. But my gut feeling there is they have no idea the chief makes this amount of money. And when you're reading through kind of his newsletter every month, he sends a little statement in the newsletter to the band. He's, you know, bemoaning cuts from the provincial government to transportation fund to bring their students to and from school. He's talking about, you know, poor conditions on the reserve and working hard to fix that. So I don't think they know, and I think this is the biggest win, is they are now able to see exactly how much their chief makes. Yeah.
Okay. So almost $1 million. Now I understand that according to research done by Sun News, that he has, or the reserve has earned, been granted by different levels of government, more than $12 million in funding. It equates to $155,000, almost $156,000 per year, and they currently have $8 million in the bank.
Exactly, exactly. And to be fair, they are working on a new complex that's supposed to be able for people to move in at the end of August. So at least they seem to be doing something with that money. But still, you know, not really enough. When conditions are so poor and you have that much money sitting in the bank and your chief is making an outrageous amount of money, 3 times what our prime minister is making, you can put that money directly towards fixing the conditions.
Now, I'm not saying that everyone should live in exactly the same home and have the same car. We're not communists here. But the fact is that you've got a chief earning almost $1 million, people living in the conditions that you were able to bring to us today, and a band with a lot of money in the bank. That money is supposed to belong to all the band members. That shows a real problem. Transparency was opposed by the chiefs. Do you think that the people of the Coquitlam Nation would be happy with this transparency today?
I hope so. I mean, the other interesting thing is a lot of these people are family members, and kind of we maybe don't know some of the kickbacks and various arrangements there as well. So obviously opposition from the chiefs and some of the other leaders, but I think hopefully we'll see, if I'm able to go back there, actually talk to people once this kind of official line is busted open, then maybe we'll get some actual comments and hopefully make conditions better as people do have that accountability now.
I'm going to bet that people on the reserve are actually happy, and this is not the only reserve, by the way. We'll probably be showcasing more of those next week. Chief in Manitoba making more than Premier Selinger did last year. So shocking across the country. Ada, great talking to you, and thanks for going out to the reserve, bringing us first-hand account of the conditions there.
Thank you.